وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
Hey everyone, this is Ray Hanania, and it's Friday, May 3rd, 2019, and you're listening to the Arab Street Radio and Podcast broadcast from Detroit, Michigan through AM 690 WNZK Radio. We're going to be talking about a lot of topics this morning, but I want to thank, of course, our partner and friend, Layla Al-Husseini. The intro always says, and now Layla Al-Husseini, but of course on Fridays when I'm on, Layla Al-Husseini is taking a break. She does so much, working Monday through Friday at the radio station, broadcasting the only Arab American radio show that broadcasts every morning in America, 1 hour. I don't know how she does it. It's a struggle, but she does a great job. So we should salute her and the U.S. Arab Radio Network and all that she does. You can call the radio show here during this broadcast at 248-557-3300. And of course, if you're outside of the greater Detroit area, you can hear the show by going online. And the best way to do that is to go to hanania.com, and I have links for the arabradio.us live broadcast link. And there's also on tunein.com where you can find WNZK 690 AM radio and click the link and listen to us as we're broadcasting. Whether you're, sitting in Chicago or just waking up, or maybe on the West Coast in San Francisco, where you're let's hope not all of my friends are sleeping there, or if you're in occupied Jerusalem beating the crap out of Palestinians, you could listen to our radio show as I say, what you're doing is wrong. So stop it. We have a lot of topics this morning. First one, actually, we're waiting for a guest to call in, Richard Silverstein. Richard is a writer and blogger. He's a Jewish American commentator, and he's been having a problem with Facebook. And one of the topics we're going to talk about is this Facebook hypocrisy. I think it's kind of a cultural thing, Facebook hypocrisy, where Facebook will ban people it doesn't like or it disagrees with, while allowing others to really stay on. In other words, there's a different bar for some people. And this week, Facebook banned a bunch of people, some high-profile people who are alleged to be anti-Semitic or anti-black or anti-whatever, white nationalists. But you don't see any Israeli leaders on the list who have been more racist than anybody, calling for the expulsion of Christians and Muslims from Palestine, calling for the separation. They did one time. They did ban Yair Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu's son, but it was only a suspension. They suspended him for a day. And that was back in December of 2018 when he says that if we could just get rid of all the Muslims and make them leave the land of Israel, but that's the kind of hate speech that they say every day. Now, Louis Farrakhan says some stuff, and I guess, you could call it anti-Semitic because he's constantly blaming everything on Jews, which I disagree with, obviously, but, why just single him out? So, and personally, I'm against this whole idea of censorship anyway. I think that you can understand the haters, like Netanyahu, better if you hear what he says. So in reality, I don't want anybody banned. I think people, the audience, the public is smart enough to see the hate. And when we see the hate, it makes it easier to define the line of what is right. That's the way to do things. I think the media too often, and I'm a big critic of the media, and I'm going to explain this criticism of the news media, because the mainstream media, American news media, does fuel hatred. And it's a very sophisticated process. They fuel hatred against a very narrow, targeted group of people that they don't like. You could be right-wing Republican. You could be a very conservative extremist, or you could be somebody who advocates against injustice, supporting Palestinians and their rights, or criticizing Israel's policies, which embrace apartheid and racism and discriminate against people on the basis of religion. That's what they do. But when they step outside of that narrow, focused, hypocrisy of racism and discrimination that the mainstream media embraces, then they become great journalists, and they write about all these great things that that need to be written about and championed. So it's a very difficult thing to address, because when I criticize the mainstream media, they hide behind all the great things that they do and say, oh, look, you're criticizing us for all the good things we do. No, I'm criticizing you for being racist, for excluding pro-Arab voices from newspapers around the country. 10,000 newspapers in this country, and there's 4 pro-Palestinian voices that are writing columns. You're telling me that's not the result of racism and bigotry and hypocrisy and bias on the part of the news media? It absolutely is. It's been going on for years. That's the problem with it. We just take it for granted. So when the Chicago Tribune hires somebody, for example, who's Arab, they have this line that they can't cross. They're not allowed to criticize Israel. They're not allowed to write about being Arab. They're not allowed to write about being Palestinian. But if they do emphasize the fact that, we're Muslim and, we support Muslim causes, and they don't attack Israel, they're going to get a lot of praise. They're going to get a lot of print time in the Chicago Tribune. And the same thing at the Sun-Times. Probably years ago was probably one of the most racist newspapers in the Midwest in the 2000s. One of the editors really had a personal hatred of Palestinians. I locked horns with him and lost my job back in 1992 when I did that. Excuse me. And I remember, fighting them. They hated the fact that I was Palestinian, because I wasn't just writing what they wanted me to write about as a Arab American journalist. I was writing about things that other Jewish American journalists were writing about. Over at the Tribune, there's several Jewish American journalists. They write these great stories about what it's like to be Jewish, what it's like to face racism and anti-Semitism. Their stories, they get to share those, very extensive stuff. But and they criticize the Arab world a lot. The columnists at the Sun-Times, several of them, just it's horrific the way they're allowed to be unfair when they criticize Palestinians or people who criticize Israel. And to me, that's the focus of my concern. I think that's where the biggest injustice is in the mainstream American media, that they've taken sides and they just want this Israel-Palestine issue to go away. They just don't want it. So they address it by not addressing it, or they focus on very specific things like, Israelis who attack Palestinians. And then they kind of softball stories when the Israelis, attack the Palestinians. But when the Palestinians attack the Israelis, they really turn it into giant, huge front page headlines. And I'm being, I'm just using that in a generic sense. They're not literally these giant headlines on the front pages, but they're big stories. And they write these big stories in the newspaper that focus on, in a very biased manner, how they criticize the Palestinians, they praise Israel, they make Israelis look like they're the victims, and then they avoid the real substantive issues like, Israel's land grab, taking land from people because they're Christian or Muslim is wrong. There's no two ways about it. Any country that does that is wrong. If they did that in the United States, it would be a crime. But they do that every day in Israel, and nobody says anything. I'm in a war with the government of Israel myself because my family owns 10 acres of land outside of occupied Jerusalem. And within less than a half mile, you can see the Israeli stadium, Malcha, the big shopping mall over there. It has 160 beautiful olive trees on it. I'm not allowed to do anything with it solely because I am Christian, and especially because I'm Palestinian, and I have a claim to it. And now this land used to be in the West Bank with East, Jerusalem, the old city, but it was annexed by the Israelis back in, I think, the late 60s or the early 70s. I can't remember when they officially annexed that part around East Jerusalem, but then they included my land, and they imposed restrictions, the apartheid racist restrictions that discriminate against me because I happen to be Christian Arab. Now, I also happen to be a loudmouth Christian Arab that writes columns in newspapers all over the world, one in the Arab News in Saudi Arabia, and one in a column that I'm writing for Middle East Monitor. And those loud voices, those high-profile voices, make it a little uncomfortable. So my land is kind of sitting there in a limbo. They can't do it. But I'm telling you, 10 acres of land within less than a half mile from Jerusalem is so valuable, it's unbelievable. But they won't allow us to do anything with it. I'd love to develop it. I'd love to, create a comedy club where I could do comedy. So I'm not sure the Arabs would like that, but I would. But I don't care. As you know, I'm not just critical of extremism in Israel. I am critical of extremism in the Arab and Palestinian community. Another topic we can talk about is my column in the Arab News this week, in which I spoke about the need to use Trump's peace plan. For example, listen, I know President Trump is supposedly going to unveil his deal of the century after Ramadan. And by the way, happy Ramadan to all the Muslims who are out there. We just finished Easter for the mainstream traditional Christians and the Orthodox Christians, and we also had Passover for the Jewish people. And of course, I hope all the Christians had a great Easter, and I hope all the Jews had a great Passover. And now we're into Ramadan, and we wish all the Muslims out there a Ramadan Mubarak, so that they have a great Ramadan as part of their religion. But after Ramadan, President Trump is going to unveil his deal of the century, and already the Palestinians and the Arabs are saying, oh, that's crap, it's garbage, it's the same old pro-Israeli stuff. It didn't start out that way. President Trump never got any, and I'm not saying that Trump is a great guy. I've always said that Trump is better than. He's better than Hillary Clinton. He was better than Barack Obama. Obama was a big disappointment, and we can talk about that later if you want, but it's a relative thing. It's not that Trump is great. Nobody says he's great, but when it comes to choices, you pick the better of the two choices, and he clearly was the better of the two choices from the standpoint of being Arab. Now, some of his policies aren't that great. He's targeted 6 Muslim countries, and restricted and banned immigration of people from those 6 Muslim countries. But I think there are 40 Muslim countries in the world. So there are 34 other countries where Muslims are coming into this country without any problems from other countries. They do enter this country, and we don't acknowledge it. We've turned this whole thing into a political issue, but by doing so, we actually hurt ourselves. I think that we should treat issues honestly, and in all honesty, I think that when Trump came into office, he never got any interest from the Arab and Muslim community to try to work with him to understand what he was doing. They just drew the line and they took sides. It became political. They're not really attacking him because he's anti-Muslim. They're attacking him because he's a Republican, and the Democrats who are against him are rallying the Muslim community, which, by the way, is mostly non-Arab in this country. So they're not doing it because the Democrats are not doing it because they care about the interests of Arabs or Palestinians. They're doing it because it's purely political. So my view was, instead of just rejecting and throwing away and, folding our arms and being the obstacle and allowing Israel then to exploit us, we should sit down with Trump, say, hey, that's a crappy plan. It's not good. Here's why. And then use it to explain to the American people why his plan is no good. But simply rejecting it out of hand and saying we're not going to sit down, we're not going to negotiate, we're not going to talk, basically allows Israel to control the discussion, and it allows Israel to control the entire theater of this issue, and to make the Palestinians look bad. So that was my column. You can go to Hanania.com and you can read both of those columns. The other column in Middle East Monitor is about the Arabs of the Titanic, and just looking back at, I think it was 107 years now since the Titanic sunk, and the very difficult challenge we've had trying to get Arabs who were on the Titanic, many of them who died, to be recognized for their real role rather than the 6 seconds that they were given on Cameron's movie Titanic. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to take a quick break. It looks like, unfortunately, Richard Silverstein may not make it, but we're going to give him till the end of the hour because he is on the West Coast, and it's very early in the morning over there, much earlier than it is in Detroit. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we can talk about a lot of these issues right after these messages.
If halal is important to your family, you can trust that Miramar will offer not only the highest quality halal products, but the best tasting and healthiest foods that can be placed on your family table with confidence. Miramar is the first and oldest halal certified food brand in America, serving the Arab and Muslim community, and offers a wide range of halal food products. Check out Miramar's halal food selection today by visiting Miramar's executive distributor, Ziyad Brothers Importing, at www.ziyad.com.
The Rama Relief Foundation provides humanitarian aid into areas inside of war-torn Syria, as well as aid to the refugees who have fled to the neighboring countries in the Middle East. The foundation offers food baskets, container shipment, mental health, education, soup kitchens, and more. Go to ramarelief.org or call 248-990-4247. Any donation amount made to Rama will go to sustaining many lives. Call now, 248-990-4247.
It's all in one grocery store, and that store is Zam Zam Fresh Foods Market. Zam Zam Fresh Foods Market offers fresh vegetables, halal meats, a great fresh bakery, as well as nuts and spices and much more. They also offer special deals every Wednesday, so don't forget to ask for your favorite foods, as shish kebabs are ready to go. So please stop by Zam Zam Fresh Foods Market at 24065 Orchard Lake Road in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-476-0300. Again, that phone number is 248-476-0300. And they are open from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Zam Zam Fresh Foods Market is your one-place stop for all your grocery shopping needs and your favorite foods.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
And welcome back to the Arab Street Radio. I am Ray Hanania, and this is WNZK AM 690. It is Friday, May 3rd, and 2019. There was a time when it had to be 1967, and I was a little kid, and I was looking forward, and I said, geez, I wonder what the world's going to be like in 2000. And I'm going to tell you what, the run-up to 2000, those years were slow and fun. But since 2000, and maybe because of the September 11th terrorism and all the tension and anger and animosity that's kind of erupted out of that, meant much of it politically opportunism, it's gone by quickly. From 2001 till it's like 18 years since then. 19 years since 2000. I'm going, wow, time flies when you're having fun or when you're fighting. I guess it flies faster. I don't know. Our number is 248-557-3300. I'm actually here the second Friday of every month, so I'll be back next Friday. So you can kind of tune into that, and we'll talk about it. And all these radio shows that I do and our podcast, you can go to thearabstreet.org and check out those podcasts, or look up The Arab Street on iTunes, Spotify, all these podcasting systems. There are a lot of them out there, and this one has a big following. I also started another podcast, which is about mainstream American politics, called Ray Hanania on politics.com. That podcast is also available on iTunes, Spotify. So I decided to separate the two things that I do, because I write a lot about mainstream politics, and I write about the Middle East and mainstream. But I decided, I got to separate the two, because the people who like the Middle East really are not interested in the local Chicagoland, Midwest, or U.S. political issues. But people, and then many Americans really don't care for the depth or the detail of, the issues in the Middle East. They just want to talk about Game of Thrones, okay, which I think is pretty cool. I love it. I watch it all the time. And I'll, on my mainstream, Ray Hanania on politics.com, you can listen to some of the podcasts that I'm doing on Game of Thrones and also local politics. And also, I write in, in addition to the Middle East publications, like the Arab News and Middle East Monitor, I also write for the ArabNews.com, which is an online website that I manage. And then on the American side, I write about American politics for a group of newspapers outside of Chicago called the Southwest News Newspaper Group. That's about 8 newspapers. And this week I got picked up by another newspaper that covers 12 South suburban Chicago land communities. And the column focus on that week was about Governor Pritzker, kind of a little bit of a hypocrite, who's playing with the tax system. So, if you're interested in the American stuff, the best way to do this is go to my hub, hanania.com, and you can see both branches of my writing, mainstream and Middle East. You can go in either direction that you want, and you can comment about it. The column this past week in the Arab News that I wrote is titled, Palestinians Can Use Trump's Peace Plan as a Launchpad. And it's a very simple argument. It may be a terrible plan. He calls it the deal of the century. I don't know. But should we just say, oh, it sounds terrible, we don't want to sit and talk with you, heck with you, and turn away? I don't think that's smart. I don't think that's strategic at all. In fact, one of the things you learn from strategic communication, something that the Arabs and Muslims, I have to say, really don't understand when it comes to politics. You don't run from controversy. You run at controversy. So let's say you're an official or an activist or an advocate. When someone comes at you and throw a controversy at you, accusing you of stuff, you don't run and make yourself look more guilty. You stand there and you defend yourself. Now, of course, if you are a criminal, you're going to run, okay? But in many cases, it's political controversy. You're not a criminal. You're being browbeat. You're being attacked for political reasons. Don't run. You turn around, you stand up, you confront the bullies, and you deal with the controversy head on. That's what you do. And you turn the controversy into a positive base for your own cause. You use it to advocate, what you want. That's what it's all about. The media brings the controversy to you and gives you the attention, and you run away because you're fearing that you're going to look bad. But the truth is, when especially for Arabs, the media only comes to us when it's negative, and our tendency is to run away and we reinforce that negative. Instead, we should stand up and look toward it and confront it and use the fact that the news media is writing about it to advocate, as a platform to advocate for our views. That's how I view Trump's plan. I don't think Trump's plan is very good. I've heard all the rumors, that, he's going to suggest that the Palestinians move to Jordan, or that they'll use land that the Egyptians, he's going to take land from the Arab countries and allow Israel to expand. Let's be honest. It isn't Trump that has empowered Israel to expand. You can blame it on him all you want. But the truth, and it isn't Trump who has occupied Jerusalem, it's Israel. And whether Trump says, oh yeah, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel or not, is irrelevant. It doesn't matter what he says, because the reality was there before he got there. Jerusalem is under Israeli control. And in their eyes, it is the capital of Israel, and we pretend like it's not. Okay? And by not dealing with it, we don't address it. So we kind of focus our anger at somebody, and Trump becomes the lightning rod that we turn our anger to. And in doing so, we miss the opportunity to use this as a means of explaining to Americans, who I believe are the biggest audience, the American people, what they believe decides what happens in the Middle East. It's a fact. Now, you can say it isn't, but I'm telling you, Israel is there because the American people have swallowed everything that Israel has said, all the propaganda. They believe it, and they've empowered Israel to do everything that it wants to do. And we've never done anything in this country to lobby our side. We're starting to do, there's some people, but not in a very large, not in a very national, not in a very powerful way. We're individual voices, and we need to do more. So we shouldn't run from Trump's peace plan. We should use it, address it, sit at the table, be respectful, prove that we support peace, prove that we want two states. Because and I'm saying prove, not that we don't want two states, not that we don't want peace based on compromise, but that we are there to make sure Americans understand that that's what we want. And those Americans who don't, some of them do, but many of them don't, we need to convince them. And we need to make that our challenge. But, for a lot of Arabs, that's a lot of work. They don't want to do it. It really is lazy politics, in my opinion. It's easier to be a hater. It's easier to be a fanatic. It's easier to say no. It's easier to reject than it is to come up with some strategic plan that elevates your argument and empowers your voice. It's hard to do that. It's blood, sweat, and tears. It's a struggle, and it requires a lot of energy and a lot of commitment and a lot of dedication. And in truth, we don't have that. We do have some, but a lot of our leadership in the Arab and Muslim community is really about rejectionism, because it's easy to exploit emotions. It's easy to take an audience of angry people and get them to follow you, even though you're doing nothing. Because that's what's happening in the Arab community in the United States. We have leaders who are doing nothing except cheering the hate. And in cheering the hate, we then get targeted by groups like Facebook. Facebook put out a list of people that they banned, but I don't see any Israelis on that list. And there's several of them. I could, and I think that that's part of the problem. Why don't the Arabs create a list of all the haters and all the things that they've done? All the racist things that Israeli political leaders have said, like Naftali Bennett or Ayelet Shaked. Why aren't they banned by Facebook for some of the most outrageous racist things that they've said? But they're not, because we're focused on the wrong issue. We're not focused on trying to confront what someone is doing. We're focused on using what someone is doing to cheer up our audience, to selfishly empower ourselves. And that's what our leaders are doing. They use the hate and the anger and the frustration as a means to build up their own base and selfishly strengthen themselves. And I've always said that if we ever achieve a peace accord with Israel, there are going to be a lot of people that are out of jobs in this country. We're going to take another break here. I'm Ray Hanania. And I appreciate you joining us this morning here at WNZK AM 690 Radio, broadcast out of Detroit, Michigan, the Arab Street Radio and podcast. You can go to thearabstreet.org to get the podcast of this show if you're joining us late. And of course, if you're outside of the region, you can always listen to us online. Go to hanania.com, thearabstreet.org. I got a number, whichever one you can remember, they're all linked together. Every one of them. It's a network, a nice web out there where you can get all the information. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to be right back right after these messages.
Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, seafood dinners, and they offer special big trays of your favorite food, plus much more. Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab address is 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-538-9552. That number again is 248-538-9552, and the supermarket is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Najee Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Najee Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Najee Abood, 734-744-9796.
تعرفوا شيء، احنا كتير بنهتم بالمقبلات بالأكل الشامي،
واحنا بنهتم بالبهارات والتسبيكة في الأكل المصري،
واحنا نهتم هواية باللحوم وجودتها بالأكل العراقي، واحنا في مطعم عشتار نهتم بيكم. اعتمدوا علينا أيا كان. نحن في عشتار نعرف أن لكل مذاق أسرار، فنحن نقدم أجود أنواع اللحوم من ملحمة عشتار الواقعة على 56865 راين رود.
عشتار، قصة حضارة ترويها لكم أطباقنا المميزة في كل زيارة.
تفضلوا بزيارتنا في 3625 East 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
مطعم عشتار بإدارة فادي بهنام وعلي البغدادي. 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
Life is a non-profit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493.
And welcome back to the Arab Street Radio. I'm Ray Hanania. It is Friday, May 3rd. Our number is 248-557-3300. This show will be podcast at the arabstreet.org website, and you can always download it off of iTunes or Spotify or any of the other podcast systems. I was going through some of the news this week, and Roger Waters from Pink Floyd was a really strong human rights activist who's advocated in strong support for the BDS, Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions movement that targets Israel's extremism. Now, my only differences with the BDS movement have had to do with the scope of BDS. I think that we need to focus on the settlements in the West Bank, the illegal Israeli settlements, and boycott anything that comes out of them, and institutions in Israel that support those settlements. But we should be very careful not to boycott Israeli groups and Israelis or even members of the Israeli public who are supportive of peace. And that means that, I'm defining the BDS movement from my standpoint, which would be to support the two-state solution. Now, you can't boycott all of Israel and then and the illegal settlements and the racists in Israel and the good people in Israel, and then say that you support the two-state solution. But I think that's another debate for a different day. But what I do think is really wrong are the pro-Israel groups here in the United States who have tried to label any criticism of Israel to be a form of anti-Semitism. And that's grown. So if you criticize Israel, and if you're strong in your criticism of Israel, and if you're having an impact on Israel's racist policies, they're going to turn around and ban or boycott you. Now, Facebook is part of that. Facebook is embracing the definition that anything critical of Israel is anti-Semitic, and therefore you shouldn't be allowed to be on Facebook. They're just announced a whole list of people that are banned from Facebook, but that doesn't include any of the Israelis who are racist and who promote anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian, and anti-Muslim policies. In Boston, there was this Saturday, I think tomorrow, the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, a group of BDS advocates have invited Roger Waters, a member of Pink Floyd, to come out there and talk about, standing up to this racism in Israel's government and their policies, and to support the BDS movement. Now, obviously, he goes further than I do, but the gist of it, I pretty much support most of what he says. And a group of pro-Israel activists and Jewish American leaders went to court and tried to force the university to prohibit this Palestinian group from holding their forum to talk about BDS and to not give Roger Waters, a Pink Floyd band member, a forum to articulate the racist policies of Israel's government. Fortunately, a judge, Robert Ullman, said that just because it says something that doesn't fit into someone else's definition of anti-Semitism doesn't mean we can ban them. In other words, just because you criticize Israel doesn't make you anti-Semitic. And those people who argue that are doing an injustice to the real the fight against anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism is a disease, hatred of Jews. But there's a difference between those racist anti-Semites who hate Jews and those people who are arguing with Jews and pro-Israeli activists over what Israel does. Israel is not a good government. It doesn't have a good government. It has a bad government. It has a government that violates civil rights laws. It has a government that violates international laws. It has a government that engages in violence to achieve its political ends. That's not anti-Semitic to stand up to those kinds of policies, no matter what Benjamin Netanyahu or his racist government say. But that also means that, when you address this type of political issue, you need to distinguish between anti-Semitism, the criticism of Jews, and legitimate criticism of Israel. And you do that by being smart in the way you talk. You don't blame all Jews. And I know this in the Arabic language. You hear a lot of activists say the Yehud. Now Yehudi means Jewish, a person who is Jewish. So instead of referring to Israel, because Israel defines itself as a Jewish state, a lot of Arabs say, hey, we have to stop the Yehudi. And I'm going, well, okay, but that's not what we're really trying to do. We're not trying to support the Jewish people. To stop the Jewish people. What we're trying to do is stop the racist in the Israeli government. And it's that distinction in language that I think sometimes a lot of Arabs, don't want to bother with. Because, first of all, translating between Arabic and English and Hebrew and English and Arabic and Hebrew isn't that easy all the time. It's very tough. So they go to the quick convenience of the translation, and you'll hear a lot of Arabs say, oh, the Jews did this, the Jews did that, in Arabic. And they'll say, look what they're saying in Arabic compared to what they're saying in English. Well, when they refer to Jews, they're not really referring to the Jewish people. They're referring to the political movement in Israel, because Israel defines itself as a Jewish state. So it is a little tough, but we have to be smart enough to discriminate in how we look at those issues to do the right thing, because the end result is civil rights. The end result is doing what's right, and following the rule of law. Those are the end results we should strive for, not the political results of helping our side even when they do terrible things. I certainly don't support Arabs who hate Jews. I won't support them. I won't support Arabs who want to boycott everything in Israel and want to destroy Israel. I'm not going to support them. That's not what I'm about. But I will support activists who believe that Israel's government is engaged in racist and violent conduct, and I will support them to get them to stop. That's where I stand. It's not an easy thing to do because it requires people to pause and think. And thinking is not an easy thing to do when you're emotional. So, there's no reason or rationalism for emotional people. Emotion is rampant anger. And in rampant anger, you can't sit there and discriminate between what is right and wrong. You just bulldoze through everything. And that usually is part of the problem. So that's it's a good story because I saw a lot of releases from the American Jewish community, the right wing part of the American Jewish community, not the left wing, the right wing part, saying that they wanted to stop this. They filed a lawsuit. They raised money. This panel in Boston, and it's good to see that a judge has stood up and stopped them. There also, just this past week, I think, a federal judge in Texas threw out the anti-BDS law that was passed there. I think it's in 26, maybe 30 states now, where governments, the pro-Israeli movement, is using the ineffectiveness of the Arab activists in this country to pass laws that violate the U.S. Constitution, saying that if you criticize Israel, you will be denied contracts or opportunities with your state. And they vary. It could be just contractors. It could be anybody that works for a state. These laws are, they're kind of different in each state by state. They do different things, but the bottom line is they're trying to punish people who criticize Israel's government and who says that I'm going to boycott their Israeli government because I don't like what they do. Now, boycotts are a legitimate form of constitutionally protected free speech. And I didn't want to support South Africa when they were discriminating against blacks. I supported the boycott of South Africa. South Africa's government is much like the Israeli government today. And Israelis openly talk about, apartheid policies. They don't care anymore because they have this overconfidence that, they can get away with anything because they have the support of the United States. And there's nobody in the Arab community that's effective in standing up to them. These little wars like, Roger Waters in Boston, he's going to get up and give a speech. The one thing that the Israelis, who were trying to stop him did was, if the Israelis had not tried to stop, this is the interesting thing, I think, if the pro-Israeli activists, the anti-Arab haters in Boston had not tried to stop this panel discussion, all right, that was going to be led by Roger Waters of Pink Floyd, nobody would have heard of this event because the Arabs are very bad at media and strategic communications. So in a way, by targeting this event at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, which features Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, the pro-Israeli fanatics have actually done a service to those Palestinians by elevating the issue to a controversy. And the controversy was that these activists were trying to stop this panel. Had they not tried to stop this panel, nobody would have written about it. Nobody would have talked about it. It would have just disappeared in the wind. And that's one of the good things, again, about controversy. Controversy puts a focus and brings the media out there. So the media is writing all about this. And now, surprise, surprise, a federal judge decided to enforce the U.S. Constitution and of free speech and civil rights, saying that you can't ban this panel, you can't censor Roger Waters, you have to allow them to have their event because it's what we support in this country, free speech, the discussion of controversial issues. They can get really tough. They can become painful to have these discussions, but we need to do it. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to take our last break this morning here at the Arab Street Radio. I'm sitting in for one of the guests over at U.S. Arab Radio, and I'm normally here on the second Friday of every month. I'll be back next Friday, and I hope you'll join me. We'll try to have some other topics too, but right now I'm just sitting in and happy to host this morning's show. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to be right back right after these messages.
The Rama Relief Foundation provides humanitarian aid into areas inside of war-torn Syria, as well as aid to the refugees who have fled to the neighboring countries in the Middle East. The foundation offers food baskets, container shipment, mental health, education, soup kitchens, and more. Go to ramarelief.org or call 248-990-4247. Any donation amount made to Rama will go to sustaining many lives. Call now 248-990-4247.
تعرفوا شيء، احنا كتير بنهتم بالمقبلات بالاكل الشامي،
واحنا بنهتم بالبهارات والتسبيكة في الاكل المصري،
واحنا نهتم هواية باللحوم وجودتها بالاكل العراقي، واحنا في مطعم عشتار نهتم بيكم. اعتمدوا علينا ايا كان. نحن في عشتار نعرف ان لكل مذاق اسرار، فنحن نقدم اجود انواع اللحوم من ملحمة عشتار الواقعة على 56865 راين رود.
عشتار، قصة حضارة ترويها لكم أطباقنا المميزة في كل زيارة.
تفضلوا بزيارتنا في 3625 East 15 Mile Road ستيرلينغ هايتس.
مطعم عشتار بإدارة فادي بهنام وعلي البغدادي. 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
Life is a non-profit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600.
And we're back on the Arab Street Radio and podcast. I'm Ray Hanania. It is Friday, May 3rd, and thank you for listening. And, of course, this will be podcast, and you can go to hanania.com or iTunes or Spotify to listen to the show. We were hoping to get Richard Silverstein on, but it really is very early in the morning for him out there on the West Coast. And, it is kind of rough. It's 7 in the morning here in Chicago. Where I broadcast the show from, and it's in the 8 o'clock hour in Detroit, which is a little more convenient for everybody over there. The 9 o'clock hour in New York on the East Coast. This past month was Arab American Heritage Month. This is the first time it's been coordinated nationally. ArabAmerica.com, Amal and Warren David were kind of the coordinators of trying to bring this together nationally. They did a great job. They just had a celebration in Washington, D.C. On April 30th this past week to kind of conclude this effort. I think we had more than, probably about 120 proclamations from around the country were adopted and approved. We had 2 here in Chicago. Illinois has a law that recognizes, as of this past December, April is Arab American Heritage Month, and we had 2 proclamations, one passed by the Cook County Board of Illinois, the largest county board, most influential board too, introduced by Sean Morrison, the Cook County Commissioner, and supported by Tony Preckwinkle, the Cook County Board President, who lost the election just recently. I got a chance to meet the new mayor-elect of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot. She seems pretty smart. I think both of them were good candidates. I thought maybe Tony Preckwinkle would be the better one. She didn't win, but just because you support one side doesn't mean you have to hate the other side. You know, that's just politics. We need to learn that. And we also had a proclamation that was approved by the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, introduced by Mariana Spiriopoulos, who is a commissioner of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, recognizing April as Arab American Heritage Month. And we thank them for all doing that, and of course Mike Madigan for introducing the law that was sponsored and passed in the Illinois Senate and in the Illinois House. We're the only state, by the way, that has a law designating April as Arab American Heritage Month. The other states have proclamations, and I'm hoping over the next year they will work toward getting laws adopted so this is done nationally. Maybe it'll be done in the U.S. Congress, but Israel has a headlock on the U.S. Congress, so it's hard to get anything done that supports any Arabs, especially those who support Palestinian rights, because the Israelis have a very keen radar for, they will support things as long as it doesn't include criticism of their policies. Israel's government is very hypocritical, and I always say that if we're going to talk about these issues, we should speak about the government, because this is about politics and government policies, not about people. And that is a distinction I always try to adhere to. You know, sometimes in the emotion of an argument, you know, you might waver over the line, but it's not intentional. It's done, quite by accident, and everybody does it. But I think that there is a middle ground that we should be pushing. And I think like I said, I think the Arabs, when Trump unveils his quote-unquote deal of the century, it's going to be crappy. It's not going to be good. We played no role in trying to define it. I think we could have, but we just wrote it off. I think that's always the mistake we make, just assuming that, what he says isn't good, so why waste our time with him? I think that's not what American government is about. American government is about not assuming that when a politician says something, you don't assume that's what they mean. Politicians say things, but they're in a structured environment where their attitudes and views can change, and we can play a role to change them. But we haven't done anything to try to change anything. What we have done is used Trump as a means of empowering the leaders in our community. Have done this to empower themselves and make them look like real leaders when honestly they're not doing anything. You know, just because you get up there in front of a microphone and you talk and you scream doesn't mean you're getting any policies done. And that's what's happening in Congress. We have several Arab Americans, including one Palestinian, and they're doing a lot of yelling and screaming, and they're trying their best, and on the one hand, to bring attention to things, but on the other hand, they're not being strategic, they're not being smart. They've just given up a whole audience. Trump's entire audience is pretty much against us, and we've written them off like it's not worth trying to mine them for their support, by offering, reason and rational logic to convince them that we're right as Palestinians. We don't do that. We should do that. And then the other half, the Democrats, 70% of the Democrats hate Palestinians, have advocated against Palestinians, have fought against Palestinian rights, and we pretty much ignore them because the people doing the Arabs in Congress criticizing Trump are all Democrats, and they're really walking a tightrope with some of the Democrats in terms of what we're doing, and it's not going to result in anything. Rashida Tlaib is a great, congresswoman. She's in a great position, and I give her credit for winning. I think it was by accident. because the politics, when you really take the time to analyze the district, you can see that she's weak and she has a problem. I'm not sure she's going to get reelected. I hope she does get reelected, but the only way she is going to get reelected is by focusing as much effort on the district and the African American community, because they are the majority there, and supporting them. And in addition, being proud, as she is, very proud of being a Palestinian. I love to see Rashida Tlaib wearing her Palestinian gowns. It's very cool. I mean, it is a neat thing, but the problem with Rashida is, she's very emotional, and it's, you're right or wrong. There's no middle ground with her. If you don't agree with her, she hates you. So, she blocked me on Twitter because I've criticized her, and, that's part of the problem with a lot of Arabs. They can't take the criticism, and to me, that's a weakness. If you can't take the criticism, that means that there's something wrong with your argument or the way you're arguing. Those people that can take criticism, and it isn't easy to do. I get it. Especially if you're not really ever in politics before, or you're in an environment where everybody loves you and you've never had to be in the middle of a controversial, situation. You don't know how to deal with it, but knowing how to take criticism, knowing how to address criticism is the key to success. And it's one reason why Palestinians are having a hard time in this country, in the United States, because we don't know how to deal with criticism in a strategic way. I wish we did. I try to do that. Let me take 1 minute to talk about the column I wrote at Middle East Monitor, MiddleEastMonitor.com. It's called "The Arabs on Board the Titanic Have a Story Waiting to be Told." It ran last week. This month of April, last month, marked the 107th anniversary of the sinking of the RMS Titanic. And it sank at the bottom of the North Atlantic in the early morning of April 15, 1912. It started to sink on April 14th. Through the night, ended up sinking on April 15th. Only 706 passengers survived from among the estimated 2,223 passengers and crew. And, exact figures are disputed on that. It's like you can never get a precise, number. And this was James Cameron, the Hollywood film director, made a movie about that voyage that premiered in November 1997 called Titanic. It became the second movie in U.S. history at the time to cross the $2 billion gross threshold, demonstrating how popular the story was. Of course, the problem with it was that, when Cameron made this movie, he didn't really focus on one large segment that was, I don't know, maybe it could have been about 10%, maybe a little less, of the passengers were Arab from the Middle East. And yet they really played effectively no role in the movie, and they should have. There was the one scene that was like 3 or 4 seconds where the Arab man in a turban with his wife and I think his kids, the wife yells, "Yalla, yalla," to the kids, "Hurry, let's go." And that woke me up in the movie. I mean, the movie was okay. I'm not a romantic. I don't go for those movies. But that woke me up. And that made me realize that there were Arabs aboard the Titanic. And as I did the research, I discovered there were as many as 165 to 200 Arabs on board the Titanic. You could see through the names that there were 79 whose surnames are obvious Arab names, but not all Arab names are obvious. Anyway, listen, I just want to say thank you for joining me this morning. I enjoyed talking. It's one of the things I do. I make a living doing it. Please go to my website at hanania.com and follow me on social media and read my columns. I want to thank Mike in the office for doing it. You guys have a great week. I'll be back next Friday here at WNZK AM 690 Radio, thearabstreet.org. Talk to you later. Have a great week. Bye-bye, everybody.